Welcome to Awol Sports Game of Inches. Wes Monell here with the 2015 NFL Season Preview. A glance at Thursday Night Football, featuring division rivalries for a dozen games. Most notable, Ravens at Steelers, a pair of playoff teams from last season. Dolphins at Patriots could be pivotal. Packers at Lions, another couple of playoff teams. And the NFC matchup between the Vikings and Cardinals could also have playoff implications. Sunday Night Football, the main attraction, usually lives up to Game of the Week. It's nearly impossible to single games out of this lineup. If you have to plan for it, Packers at Broncos kick off Week 1, prime time. Colts Steelers looks like a shootout, and you couldn't possibly miss the Seahawks clashing with the Cheeseheads. Then, of course, the classic Monday Night Football schedule. As usual, a doubleheader in the opening week. Plenty of intriguing matchups. Steelers face the Chargers, Bird Bowl between the Ravens and Cardinals. I like the finale, Bengals and Broncos. First, a look at the NFC where Dallas won the East, Carolina came out of the South, two playoff teams from the West in Seattle and Arizona, but we begin in the North where Green Bay and Detroit round out last postseason. NFC North. Green Bay won the division, lost in the NFC Championship game to Seattle. Detroit won a wildcard berth, lost to Dallas. Minnesota played without Adrian Peterson for a first-year head coach, and the Chicago woes led to a new regime. These depth charts are courtesy of Pro Football Focus, and they include a grade for each player, as you will see throughout this season preview. Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers is the reigning, defending NFL Most Valuable Player. The receivers are explosive. Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb are studs. Devontae Adams saw time as a rookie. He's been counted on to take another leap. Tight end Richard Rodgers is expected to get more involved. James Starks will remain relevant in the backfield to keep Eddie Lacy in one piece, who many believe is a candidate for the rushing title. A good O-line with a new starter on the blind side. That shouldn't be a major issue with the MVP's feel inside the pocket. Clay Matthews listed at outside linebacker, but you bet he will mix it up and continue to play at inside linebacker as well. Julius Peppers applying pressure off the edge. You have to love the talent and speed in the secondary, the strength of this Cheesehead defense. The D-line is so-so, but they should perform better in second halves because more times than not, the offense will have a lead. Quarterback injury aside, the Pack look like a lock to win the North again with 12 or 13 wins. That should net them a first-round bye, resulting in another NFC title game appearance. Detroit Lions. As usual, they go where Matthew Stafford will take them. Last season was 11-5 with the first-round exit. Megatron is still the unquestioned best wideout in the game, despite a plethora of exciting talent around the Shield. Golden Tate's arrival forms an elite duo, but they're going to need help from the rest of the unit. Expect a rotation in the backfield where Joique Bell will get the first crack, though he has been banged up this offseason, further opening the door for rookie Amir Abdullah, who I like to lead the team in rushing. Not to overlook Theo Riddick, a playmaker that the staff is high on, he will get burned at running back and in the slot. Perhaps Stafford's inconsistencies stem from a struggling O-line, but the offense scored less than the previous season, which is exactly what I was afraid of when they hired Jim Caldwell. Now, the Lions' D was elite. They replaced an interior pair with the veteran Haloti Ngata. Maybe they still hang in the top 10, top dozen. They appear set at safety with a couple standout linebackers. I'm not buying the D-line and corners being as stout as last year. I see a drop-off here hovering around 500. Minnesota Vikings. Mike Zimmer and Norv Turner teamed up to get the Vikings to 7-9 without Adrian Peterson. Not too long ago, AP rushed for 2K, something I think he has a legitimate chance to surpass off a year's rest. Although unlikely, Peterson took a less talented team to the postseason after breaking history. Teddy Bridgewater looks like a project trending in the right direction. Mike Wallace fits the vertical threat that they need. Charles Johnson started to come on at the end of his rookie year. Kyle Rudolph was banged up, and there's depth behind him now. This has the makings to be a sneaky good offense. The recipe for success without an elite QB has been to run the ball and play stellar defense. Harrison Smith and Chad Greenway are elite at their respective positions. The corners have the desired blend of size and speed. The D-line has been growing together. The standout group at linebacker can fix the leaky run D that gave up so many holes last year, in part to injury. Zimmer always has his defenses ranked high, and Minnesota gets the nod for the second best team in the North. I do expect them in the wild card hunt. Chicago Bears. They went 6-10 after some picked them to reach the postseason and even the big game. Talent-wise, they bumped up defensively with some veterans while replacing Brandon Marshall with Kevin White and Eddie Royal. The coaching staff comes from winning programs. Expect Jay Cutler to get the Tony Romo treatment. He's shown us flashes of good and bad. Keep in mind that Fox has won playoff games with Jake Delhomme and Tim Tebow. The top priority will be to feed Matt Forte, then take your shots downfield. Forte caught triple-digit passes last season and went over 1,000 on the ground. Incredible. Martellus Bennett might have his best statistical season if he keeps his cool. You saw how the staff used Julius Thomas in Denver. Vic Fangio could turn this defense around overnight. A lot of young players, but they did upgrade with some veterans. Not too many in-betweens, and there are a lot of individual what-ifs. I think the offense will remain ahead of the defense. If they struggle again, they could only win a handful of games. The optimist wants to see 9, maybe 10 wins. This looks like a 500 team to me, but they'd be a dark horse if the dominoes fell their way. NFC East. Dallas won the division. They beat the Detroit Lions before losing to the Green Bay Packers. Philadelphia notched 10 victories, and it wasn't good enough to reach the postseason. The New York Giants finished better than they started, and Washington simply struggled. Dallas Cowboys. A dozen wins for America's team, and the O-line gets much of the love and respect. Well deserved. But beware, you cannot just plug and play any running back and expect last season's success. Dallas needs the rushing attack to guide the way, which is unlikely. Tony Romo was an MVP candidate, in part to that reason, and for being on the Cowboys. However, this year will really be on him. His dropbacks and amount of passes should increase, which opens him up for hits and picks. The line can really prove their worth this season. The defense is simple. They stay in their lanes and they gang tackle. The Cowboys' D doesn't do much out of the ordinary, and they did greatly benefit from the ground game. The strength lies in the D-line. Even the interior guys can get to the quarterback. I think another dozen wins is a stretch, but certainly in the playoff picture come December. Perhaps they officially got over that hump by sweeping the month a season ago. This division could send two teams to the postseason. I have Dallas finishing between 8 and 10 wins. Philadelphia Eagles. Chip Kelly is well aware that 10-6 isn't good enough not to make the playoffs last season, and they dropped out of the first round the year before. Hence the roster overhaul to get the talent he feels he needs for his scheme. We all know the story on DeMarco Murray and Sam Bradford. Let me put it this way. If we see Bradford in week 16, 17, then he likely wins Comeback Player of the Year. A former number 1 pick under center for Chip Kelly sounds like a contender. They must play ball and endure the season, though. Expect Murray to lead the backfield, but Ryan Matthews and Darren Sproles will both be involved. This is the best backfield in the NFL. Without a so-called star receiver, they will look to spread the wealth in their up-tempo offense, and that may go hand-in-hand with that approach. Don't overlook this elite O-line. If not for the players, then for the scheme that still scored points at an elite rate and racked up the yardage with 4 total starters missing action. Look, the offense isn't really the problem in Philly. The defense, they improved, and I believe this is an elite front 7 that hopes the secondary can simply eliminate the bombs downfield, keeping a majority of plays in front of them like the rival Cowboys did last year. The special teams was electric and even won a couple of games for the Eagles, my favorite to win the East. I see them getting 10 or 11 victories. New York Giants. The G-Men went 6-10, yet everyone is hyped for what this offense can do. Eli Manning finally looked comfortable in the offense when Odell Beckham Jr. stepped onto the field. Victor Cruz, he's returning, but he may not get back to his salsa dancing ways until the second half of the season. They bought themselves insurance by snagging Dwayne Harris from the rival boys. He will also spearhead the return units. Ruben Randall and Larry Donnell had some moments last season. Sure, Philly has the most dynamic backfield in football, but the Giants have their sights on a balanced attack. Not quite Earth, Wind, and Fire Part 2, but I like Rashad Jennings more than most. Shane Vereen is going to be a top target. Andre Williams is going to get his touches as well. Drafting Eric Flowers in the first round will help to give Eli time to keep him upright, which he certainly needs to not rank among the league leaders in interceptions. Landon Collins, rookie safety, will make an immediate impact in this defense. The cornerback tandem looked sharp last season before the injury bug bit them. The defensive front has some talent as D coordinator Steve Spagnuolo comes back and looks to disguise a vulnerable linebacking core. As hopeful as I am about their offense, I doubt the consistency and the defense as a whole. They could make a playoff push. No one would be surprised, but I have them in the 7-9 win frame. Washington Redskins. A 4-12 season is never pretty. Yet it was the first year with head coach Jay Gruden. Robert Griffin is still young and learning the ropes. Just look at Jason Campbell, who recently retired, played his first 7 seasons in different offenses. The hiring of O-line coach Bill Callahan. Arguably the biggest hire, and it's under the radar. Previously with the boys, now he comes over to boast Alfred Morris and the Skins O-line that just drafted Brandon Scherf in the first round. They do expect to make life easier for Griffin, with the play action being stronger, and Griffin still has the speed if he can overcome the mental setback. Deshaun Jackson led the league in yards per reception. Pierre Garçon looking to get back on track. After all, he was the go-to guy a couple of seasons ago. They have a pair of tight ends that can get the job done. The linebackers are pretty good, and they picked up some veterans along the line that are productive. Chris Culliver slides in nicely in their man coverage across from D'Angelo Hall. They will continue to give up chunk plays, but they're aggressive and will come away with a few turnovers as well. The rest of this defense, the rest of the division is better and improved as much as they are, if not more. So the Redskins' expectations, I would put them between 4 and 6 wins. NFC South, Carolina Panthers. They finished 7-9-1, winning the division and a playoff game against the undermanned Cardinals. Nonetheless, they got the job done. The first team in the South to win the division back-to-back. Cam Newton is a big guy. I believe he's a franchise quarterback. And he's throwing to big targets. Greg Olsen, elite tight end. Kelvin Benjamin, Brandon Funchess. It's a young tandem. This group looks like a good complement for a usually tough defense and a running team. Jonathan Stewart finally gets the lead role after a strong finish to last season. Their rivals aren't necessarily good versus the run. Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, and rookie Shaq Thompson, probably the best linebacker unit in the NFL. Charles Tillman brings the leadership and productivity any secondary could use. They did get better and apparently have one of the easier schedules to face. But they had some really poor showings last year and finished below 500. I'll put them at 8 games. New Orleans Saints. The Saints were not marching in last year at 7-9. They were still in the hunt for the division, but Drew Brees, although he's still trustworthy, we are seeing a bit of a decline, and some of that has to do with his supporting cast. No Jimmy Graham is huge. Brees really locked in on him the past few years, especially on third downs. So if one quarterback's best friend is no longer around, that would leave the other being a running game. Mark Ingram came into his own last season and will be joined by C.J. Spiller. That's an elite 1-2 punch. Adding Max Unger to anchor the line further indicates a desire to stay more grounded. That game plan also aims to ease things on a bad defense. Sure, the numbers say they face an easier slate of opponents. I think they've lost more than they've gained. 8 wins looks like the ceiling. Then again, an elite QB versus a favorable schedule is something to pay attention to. Atlanta Falcons. They went 6-10 without much of a defense or a ground game. Matt Ryan is top 10. Julio Jones is top 7. Kyle Shanahan looks to complement his best players with a balanced offense. Jacob Tamme actually gives them a receiving threat at tight end. The backfield is young and full of juice. They really just need to do enough. They don't have the weight of the world. Roddy White, still productive. Devin Hester, an explosive returner that even chimed in, playing some slot. Leonard Hankerson, a new addition, under the radar. When he wasn't sidelined to injury, he showed he could get open down the middle. The upgrades in the front seven for a defensive-minded head coach is a start. The secondary, not so much. Easiest slate in the league. Should boost the defensive numbers and get the ground game going a little bit. Considering their division, this could be a non-playoff team making the jump, and they've been there before. I see them ranging between 7 and 9 victories. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You can only improve based off of last season and a couple of wins. They moved on from some headache type of players and brought in some veterans that are familiar to the defensive scheme. Now they have their franchise quarterback in Jameis Winston. They're also looking at Doug Martin to bounce back, to get rejuvenated in this new offensive system. And don't forget, they have huge targets on the squad as well. Vincent Jackson, Mike Evans, and they're hoping to get more out of Austin Seferian-Jenkins. So we know about Lovie Smith and what he's done to a defense before. Now, with these additions such as Henry Melton and Bruce Carter, hey, maybe the Buccaneers can make the leap. It's not as strong as the division as it once was. They play cover 2, and they're going to be a running team, so that always helps the defense out. So yes, I think we'll see their numbers improve based off the additions and the schedule being easier. But as far as making the leap into the postseason, I don't see that happening right away. I have Tampa Bay in the 5-6 game range. NFC West. Seattle got back to their championship ways, only to lose on the final play to New England. Arizona started fast before the injuries drove them to a dead end. San Francisco unraveled. St. Louis, again, in the cellar. Seattle Seahawks. The Legion of Boom should be more motivated than ever. How scary is that coming off a 12-4 year that they should have repeated as champions? Some way, somehow, they re-signed most of their core players to extension, one of them being Russell Wilson, who led all QBs in rushing. After making clutch and timely passes with a mediocre receiving core, yes, I went there, Doug Baldwin, they go out and trade for Jimmy Graham. That has me asking whether or not they can go undefeated. The only real loss, defensively, is a cross from Richard Sherman. The other 10 guys on the field are good, if not great individually, so collectively, that other corner, most likely Kerry Williams, could look better as well, and he has a ring to his own credit. Seattle is the class of the NFL and the team to beat. I won't predict 16-0. It wouldn't shock me, to be honest, but I'll side with a more believable 13-3. Arizona Cardinals. Bruce Arians is a fantastic coach. They still got to 11-5 and backed into the postseason without Carson Palmer. His return should make the offense better and lighten things up for Andre Ellington and the backs. John Brown is destined to explode in a similar way that T.Y. Hilton did. Larry Fitzgerald is still good. Michael Floyd has some chemistry with Palmer. The defense maximized everything they had and played at a very high level. I just don't know if they can maintain that. They were bending and not breaking. Yes, Palmer's return also makes life easier for the D. I just don't buy this team's consistency on either side of the ball. Calais Campbell is the leader of this defense and arguably the best lineman behind J.J. Watt. Patrick Peterson, elite player, this is the year he has to elevate his status to another level by being more consistent. Perhaps Tyrann Mathieu takes another step forward. Arizona is good and they'll be back in the playoff mix. They just need to prove a little more to me. I see between 7 and 9 wins. San Francisco 49ers. Lots of changes in the Bay after going 500. Attempting to move on from half of their defense retiring, Navarro Bowman should be in the running for Comeback Player of the Year. Now he has the whole middle of the field to himself. Perhaps the locker room started to chatter too much and turn their heads, so maybe this coaching change could be a good thing. Colin Kaepernick has way too many downs to be considered reliable. It helps to add Reggie Bush, Torrey Smith, Carlos Hyde gets a chance at a bigger role now, but they must acknowledge Vernon Davis as a priority, unlike in years past. Looking at their rankings, it appears obvious that the D will take a dip, and I'm not sure the passing game will improve enough to make up for the difference. They play in one of the toughest divisions in football and will battle with the Rams to see who sticks in the cellar. I think the Niners drop more games, ending up with 5 to 7 wins in last place. 6-10 for the St. Louis Rams, with the arrow pointing up for this young team. Can you name who started week 1 at quarterback and running back for them a season ago? Now they have Nick Foles under center, a guy that will take shots downfield. Trey Mason and Todd Gurley have fresh legs to hit the holes violently. The receivers might not pop out individually, but they do have a group of guys that can move the chains. Brian Quick was turning it on before he got hurt. The Rams have one of the better defenses in football. Their numbers are slighted from a lack of offensive scoring power. There's no debate about them rolling out the best D-line. The young secondary had their moments. They face a very tough schedule, and it might be tough to equal last season's record, but I think they've improved enough to hover around 500. Moving on to the AFC, New England won the East and, of course, the Super Bowl. Indianapolis owned the South. Denver clinched the West. Pittsburgh snagged the North, while Cincinnati and Baltimore grabbed the wild card berths. AFC North. They sent 3 teams into the dance. Pittsburgh squeaked by to win it, lost to the wild card Ravens in the postseason. Then the Ravens were ousted by the eventual champion Patriots. The Bengals were the other wild card, and they lost to the Colts. Cleveland had a good start before going back to their ways. Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steel Curtain isn't quite the same, yet they went 11-5. There aren't many offenses I would prefer to watch over Ben Roethlisberger and company. Take it from the guy that saw Antonio Brown's breakout coming. Le'Veon Bell will miss games early on, but the guy went on a tear and looked like the best back in the league doing it all. This offense has a little bit of everything, including Big Ben extending plays. The interesting side of the ball is the defense that they believe is shored up. Ryan Shazier played better as the season progressed before getting sidelined. Drafting Bud Dupree fits what they need, but that secondary is still a work in progress. If they won't get exposed out of the gate, they might when the offense builds a lead and forces the other team to throw. And maybe that defense doesn't hold on to a lead. Or, then again, when you're leading, the guys up front seem to get more pressure, and that does help the back end. Pittsburgh is definitely the favorite to win the division again, say 10, 11 victories, and make a run for the AFC title game. Cincinnati Bengals, 10-5-1. 10-5-1 for the Bengals that seem to tie every leap year or so. I agree with all the Andy Dalton criticism, but step back a little bit. Mohamed Sanu was his top option to throw to for the majority of last season. A.J. Green is the top talent. Marvin Jones also healthy now. Tyler Eifert is improving. So all of that could put Dalton and this offense on the right track, especially with Jeremy Hill commanding attention while Giovanni Bernard brings the lightning. The defense had some adjusting to do after losing their coordinator, and they still kept opponents off the scoreboard. Each unit of the defense can make an argument for being the best on the team. Cincinnati has one of the best rosters in the league, and they look primed for another playoff run around 10 wins, despite the second toughest schedule. Baltimore Ravens, 10-6, sent this team to the playoffs as well. Right off the bat, they have too many questions to be answered as far as returning to the postseason is concerned. Can Justin Forsett have another good season for a new offensive coordinator in Mark Trestman? If Rashad Perriman can't hang on to the ball, maybe Steve Smith hangs up the cleats when the bye week hits? Look, Max Williams is a good addition, and hopefully Dennis Pitta can make an impact too. I don't believe Joe Flacco is an elite QB. Franchise? Sure. And he's going to have to pave the way this year. The defense played better than expected with so many changes. The D-line is in a good place. Actually, the front seven is elite. The secondary got picked on, and perhaps a strong pass rush will make them look better. Their losses, including Gary Kubiak, the new coach for Denver, has me seeing them in prove-it mode, ranging between 7 to 9 games. Cleveland Browns. Did you know they finished 7-9? No thanks to their offense, as you can see. The backfield carousel should continue into this season, and probably at wideout, since Terrell Pryor is making the transition. Maybe they can squeeze some life out of Dwayne Bowe. Josh McCown had a good stretch of games a couple seasons ago. Then last year was abysmal. I'm not sure this situation is better. So I do expect to see Johnny Football get in on the action. The strength of the Browns is obviously the defensive side of the ball. In this case, I like the makeup of their back seven starters. The division is as good as they come. The schedule is challenging, so taking a step back from 7 wins looks destined to happen. 4 to 6 ball games for the Dog Pound. AFC East. New England reigned supreme over the East again, knocked out Baltimore and Indy before hanging on to beat Seattle in the big game for another ring. Miami looks to take another step forward, adding a new cornerstone on defense. Buffalo expects to push for the division under a new regime with some new playmakers. And the New York Jets went all out on defense to try to compete. New England Patriots. The last time New England didn't win double-digit games in a season was in 2002. The thing is, they finished 9-7 and still won the division that year. Well, the Dolphins and Jets also went 9-7, but the Patriots had the tiebreaker. And the Bills broke even at 8-8. With Tom Brady suspended 4 games, that's the silver lining for the reigning champs. To be honest, I don't like the roster. They lost a lot of vets, which happens when you are far too reliant on replacing them in-house. And although in the sports world gives them the benefit of the doubt after earning it, I agree. For a decade and a half, they've done so. I'm just not buying it this season. Brady missing a month could put this team in an 0-4 hole. Then, it might take Brady and the offense another few games to get back into rhythm. Approaching mid-season, they might have to win out or only lose a game to defend their title. I don't think they'll reach a dozen wins like the past few seasons, but rather in the single digits. Why exactly? LeGarrette Blount is the best back they have, and he's missing the first month of the season. If teams can double Jimmy Graham, I'm sure they can smother him, meaning Rob Gronkowski, with Jimmy Garoppolo dropping back. The Jags can beat the Pats early. Just think about it. Blake Bortles has more experience than Garoppolo, better receivers, and running backs. I think the champs miss out on the postseason and struggle to get over 500. Buffalo Bills. They finished 9-7 a season ago, in the playoff mix. Didn't quite make it. The offense gets new life with LaShawn McCoy and Percy Harvin. Sammy Watkins is still the top target. You may be down on a team without a proven QB. Understandable. But don't overlook coaching. Greg Roman comes from the 49ers, expecting to move the chains on the ground and hoping to push E.J. Manuel, Tyrod Taylor, or even Matt Castle in the right direction. This is a top 5 defense that will be run by Rex Ryan. Not many offensive juggernauts on their slate of games. Even the Patriots will struggle to score against them. Week 1 might be the most points they allow all season. I expect Buffalo and Miami to scrap for the division crown around 9 or 10 wins. Miami Dolphins, coming off a 500 season. In case you're one of those fans that didn't buy the Ryan Tannehill extension, I tell you, the former receiver has improved every season and ranks among the top 8 in several categories. Keep in mind, Joe Philbin came from the Packers, Bill Lazor from the Eagles, the best offenses in the NFC. Talk all you want about their targets being young, but they can play. Not even Peyton Manning and the Broncos threw much downfield. They get the ball out quick, getting their playmakers in space to gain yak. Hopefully, I don't have to tell you who Brent Grimes is, one of my favorite cornerbacks in all of football. They now have a defensive cornerstone with Ndamukong Suh. The division has arguably the best defenses, but these aren't the flashiest offenses, and the East is up for grabs. When I got Miami around 9 or 10 wins. New York Jets, a rough 4-12, led the Jets to overhaul their secondary. Probably now the best in all of football, with some familiar faces. Oh yeah, the same can be said for those studs up front on the D-line. No, they don't have much firepower, but the veteran wideouts form an interesting tandem. Look, it appears that New York will remain in the cellar, and they should be considered underdogs behind their rivals. Sometimes a quarterback whisperer can take a guy to another level, but Chan Gailey has his work cut out with Geno Smith and the other guys on the roster since Smith is going to miss some time. They have a ton of bodies in the backfield, but sometimes that means you don't have one to get the job done. They believe Chris Ivory is the man. For the Jets, I see between 5 and 6 wins. AFC South, Indianapolis ran away with the division, beat Denver to reach the AFC Championship game before getting deflated by the Patriots. Houston earned respect in Coach O'Brien's first season and will be on Hard Knocks. Jacksonville has a lot of youth and hopes to point upward. Tennessee had the second pick. They went quarterback with Marcus Mariota. Indianapolis Colts. They reeled in some vets on both sides of the ball, and they have some left in the tank. They should do better than 11-5 en route a first-round bye. I'm thinking first seed. They face the second easiest schedule with MVP candidate Andrew Luck entering his prime. Frank Gore doesn't need to do everything anymore. Andre Johnson is not done. This is the best QB he's ever gotten to play with. Johnson and T.Y. Hilton have both topped 200 yards in a game. They lead a deceptively deep group. At tight end, Dwayne Allen and Kobe Fleener each caught 8 touchdowns, the first time that teammates have accomplished that. The corners balled out last season, proving to be a top 7 duo, and hopefully Robert Mathis contributes with Trent Cole on board and some of the younger pass rushers developing. I got the Colts pegged at around 13 wins this season. Houston Texans. Did you know the Texans went 9-7? Yep, Bill O'Brien's first year. Arian Foster bounced back, and he might come back from this injury in time for the opener. That remains to be seen. DeAndre Hopkins living up to the nickname Nuke. J.J. Watt is beyond a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He's been on a tear for that MVP award, ranked first by his peers on the top 100 list. Top prospect Jadeveon Clowney is healthy. Hopefully Brian Cushing stays that way. With the third easiest schedule, they have a real shot at a wildcard spot. Their biggest weakness was containing the pass. Adding Stevie Brown and Raheem Moore at safety should shore up most of those issues. First round pick Kevin Johnson, too, at cornerback. I'll give them a win frame between 7 and 10, considering the glimpses of positives shown by Brian Hoyer. Jacksonville Jaguars. This team is better than 3-13. Whether that translates to the standings, that depends on Gus Bradley's defense. It hurts to lose Dante Fowler. They won't have their first rounder, but at least it happened early enough to plan for. I think Julius Thomas is an elite tight end because of his talent. Some may believe he was just a product of Peyton Manning. Orange Julius will have a better year than any Denver tight end. Owen Daniels, Virgil Green. They're going to play him with Mercedes Lewis. Perhaps Patriot-style, dual tight end. They have a trio of backs and a handful of receivers with some shake and playmaking ability. The wins will be up to Blake Bortles' development. A good season for them would be 5-6 wins. Easy schedule, but for a struggling team that didn't rank higher than 21 in the major stats. Tennessee Titans. 2-14 is bad. Don't expect that to improve much. It took long enough for the second pick in the draft to even sign his deal here. In Madden, I might mess with him, running with Marcus Mariota, tossing screens to Kendall Wright, Harry Douglas. Hey, I'm trying to be nice here. I guess David Cobb is going to get some opportunities, but he needs to get on the field. You can't really blame Bishop Sankey for doing next to nothing in that underwhelming offense. I would immediately regret my decision to pick the Titans in Madden after all. When it comes to defense, they have more talent than last season, but neither side of the ball can really hold their own. In the standings, winning 3 games is better than last year. This is for Mariota and Wisenhunt to grow together, while hoping guys like Arakpo and Cersei can help McCourty get some stops under Dick LeBeau's scheme. I'm going to say 2 to 4 wins for the Titans. AFC West. Denver felt mile high to clinch the division, then the Colts ended their season. San Diego gave away their playoff ticket with relocation looming in a year or two. Possibly. But I do believe so. Kansas City hopes to get back in the playoff picture. Oakland continues their youth movement to climb the ranks. Denver Broncos. A dozen wins was not the goal. Gary Kubiak immediately makes this team better. I'm excited to watch Peyton Manning throw from play action. Peyton with a good rushing attack. It looks like they'll reach the AFC Championship. There's little doubt about defending the AFC West. I think it's debatable whether the offense or defense is better. That's a great problem to have because it's not a problem at all. The simple Kubiak formula alone will help an already good defense that just drafted Shane Ray. Denver is on a mission and should snatch another first-round bye. I had them clinching the second seed, about 12 victories on the season, and perhaps on a collision course for a rematch with the Colts. San Diego Chargers. Another heartbreaking ending for the Bolts. 9-7 is a good over-under for this team. I can see a season play out where they reach the postseason as a wild card. I can also see them sliding down the ranks of the AFC just under 500. Melvin Gordon is in a great position to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Keenan Allen will benefit from the addition of Stevie Johnson. Ladarius Green will get a sneak peek at life without Antonio Gates, who is suspended for the first month. I still can't trust a mediocre O-line that doesn't get much of an offseason emphasis. The linebackers could make this defense complete simply by their health. And on the back end, Eric Weddle is the best safety in the league. So yeah, I think the Chargers can vie for a wild card berth. Kansas City Chiefs, another 9-7 team that got some playoff experience a couple of years ago. The pass rush is relentless, and Jeremy Maclin is the best target the Chiefs have had in years. Things could open up for Charles, always an Offensive Player of the Year candidate, but I'd like to see some more Nile Davis to keep the offense fresh and moving. Alex Smith will need to use his legs more, and I think he'll notice that if he's watching film. He'll learn that Maclin is good at backyard football and keeping a play alive. Travis Kelce expected to take a leap. The best news of the offseason might be Eric Berry persevering and returning to practice. This is one of the best outside linebacking combinations. Pass rushing, Tamba Hali, Justin Houston. Really good defense. And this is another team you can't really overlook any given Sunday. And they could also be in that wild card hunt come December. Oakland Raiders. You're probably expecting the same 3-13 Raiders. I like the new coaching staff. A young offense that will get to start together. Amari Cooper could win Offensive Rookie of the Year. The Carr to Cooper connection should be around for a while. Michael Crabtree has a chip on his shoulder. Khalil Mack will make an impact on the stat sheet this season. It's hard to find teams that go from 3 wins to the postseason. They have a tough schedule, so going 3-13 again doesn't necessarily mean they aren't improving. It's going to take time, but in the process, we're going to see some grit. I think 4 to 6 win frame is realistic for the silver and black. And here are the candidates, or some of them at least, to watch as it pertains to the awards at the end of the year. MVP candidates, you see some of them here. My vote for MVP this year, I'm gonna say it's between Aaron Rodgers and Andrew Luck. And I have Andrew Luck winning Most Valuable Player. Offensive Player of the Year. Right off the bat, you look at Rob Gronkowski. Who else do they have? Who else can they rely on? It kind of looks like this award for this upcoming season is tailor-made for Gronk. You look around, Odell Beckham's a flashy name. There's no doubt he can win this award. Megatron's always going to be up there. Dez Bryant has led all receivers and touchdowns the past few seasons. I don't think Matt Forte is going to get 1,000 on the ground and triple-digit catches again. DeMarco Murray, he might lead the league in rushing again. And Antonio Brown is just smooth. I have yet to really stray from Gronkowski. If I have to throw another name into the mix out of these guys, it's got to be Dez Bryant. Defensive Player of the Year, to me, it's always going to be J.J. Watt regardless. I know he's going to be thrown into the MVP conversation. He's a special guy. Looking at the other guys, you see some new faces here. Navarro Bowman, can he recover that quickly? He's also in the running for Comeback Player of the Year. C.J. Mosley made the Pro Bowl as a rookie. Clay Matthews going to bounce from the inside and outside. They're going to put him all over the field. Bobby Wagner, when you consider all the names on that Seattle defense, he is their glue guy. And Levante David was someone I picked last season to win Defensive Player of the Year. He's a stud, and now he has more help defensively to shine even more. Luke Kuechly, probably the best linebacker in the game, in the middle. So yeah, if it's not J.J. Watt winning this award unanimously, who am I going to roll with? I'm going to stick with Levante David. It's hard to go against Kuechly. He's like a J.J. Watt at his respective position. That's why these guys are on this list. They're studs. Comeback Player of the Year. You see several names here for different reasons. If you see Sam Bradford playing at the end of the season, it's likely his award. Adrian Peterson, I believe, would have to just, maybe it wouldn't have to be 2K to win this award, but to outshine a guy like Bradford, he might have to do something great. Victor Cruz coming back from his injury. Darren McFadden, also a candidate. I'm not really buying McFadden in Dallas. Sean Weatherspoon was injured, as was Postlesny and Kiko Alonso. Offensive Rookie of the Year. My two favorites are out of the AFC West. Amari Cooper, Melvin Gordon. You know Gordon's going to get the touches for the Bolts. Cooper instantly becomes Carr's go-to guy. I think the race is between those two. If I had to pick one, I'd probably lean on the running back. Defensive Rookie of the Year. These are some intriguing names here. I really like Shaq Thompson. He's in a good spot to succeed, playing for the Panthers next to a pair of standout linebackers. I think Landon Collins might have the edge. Free safety, filling in for Antrell Roll. Already one of the best defenders on that defensive unit. Shane Ray is going to get his opportunities for sacks, not only getting to learn from DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller, but he's going to be in that rotation. Eric Kendricks, he's going to have a prominent role in a revamped linebacking corps. Minnesota. Leonard Williams, more of an unsung position on the D line. The favorite, I probably lean towards Landon Collins. Coach of the Year. I don't think Bruce Arians is going to win a third award, at least not this soon. Mike Tomlin can very well win this if he guides Pittsburgh to a first-round bye. Chip Kelly can win this if he can get the Eagles to a first-round bye, if they can somehow hurdle the Packers or Seahawks. Mike Zimmer, I can see that if they make the postseason, Minnesota, and I do have them as a playoff team, so I do believe Zimmer is a Coach of the Year candidate. Andy Reid, if he can bounce back and bring KC into the playoff picture. You got Dan Quinn for the Falcons, first year, defensive guy. He has a good offense already and the easiest schedule in football. And not really a tough division. So really that's more of the dominoes falling their way. And then Joe Philbin, he's on this list here. There's more off the list that could totally win this award. But Philbin with the Dolphins, they have some additions. They're buying into their quarterback. No Tom Brady for the first month. I like that team to take the most advantage of Brady's absence, so I could see Philbin making the playoffs, getting some consideration for this award. General Manager. Yes, Belichick is on this list because he is the GM, as is Chip Kelly, a couple coaches on here. Ryan Pace, dark horse candidate here because of the staff he's brought together and some of the veteran additions on the defensive side of the ball. And this was a playoff team a few seasons ago. You got the Panthers making great personnel moves. Steve Keim, one of my favorite GMs in the league. Arizona overachieved last season, and this year they're healthier. And then, of course, Seattle, the Seahawks. With all those extensions, it's kind of hard to go against Snyder at this point. And they did add Jimmy Graham. When all is said and done, this is how the standings look in my book. You see the division winners on top, leaving a three-way tie for the final two wildcard spots. Due to tiebreakers, the edge goes to Minnesota and Dallas. On the other side, Cincinnati and San Diego are the wildcards due to a tiebreaker, leaving New England out of the picture, and I say that assuming Tom Brady is missing 4 games. If that gets chopped down to 2, then the Pats can get to 11 wins, best case scenario, which could really shake up the postseason. One of those games is against the Cowboys. With Brady, I'd give them the nod. In doing so, that would knock out Dallas, and Arizona would then sneak into that final spot. As far as the AFC is concerned, it would take less time for the Pats to hit their stride, and they'd make it in to defend their title. With that looming, this is how I currently see the AFC. Cincinnati heads to Miami. I think the Dolphins hold home field. San Diego crosses the country to Pittsburgh. Got the home team winning again. Minnesota at Carolina. I like the Vikings. And a third meeting between the Cowboys and Eagles. Remember, this could be Arizona depending on the Brady suspension, but as is, I'll side with the home team in this rivalry. Which leads us to the next round where the top teams earned a bye week. Colts, Broncos, Seahawks, and Packers. Dolphins, Colts. I think Indy returns to the AFC Championship game. Steelers, Broncos, a rematch from a few postseasons ago. This is a tough game to pick, but you know what it is. Black and yellow, black and yellow. The Vikings travel to the 12th man. Hard to go against the LOB. And Philly gets a date on Lambeau Field. The Packers have been on a collision course for an NFC title game rematch. Conference Championship Weekend, featuring star quarterbacks. Both would be rematches from the regular season. Elite rivalry in the NFC. Who's going to the big game? I gotta roll with last season's MVP, Aaron Rodgers, and the Cheeseheads getting over the 12th man hump. And my pick for MVP this season, Andrew Luck and the Colts. I think Indy gets more stops in that game. Indianapolis Colts versus the Green Bay Packers, Super Bowl 50. Both teams were on this stage not too long ago. Two of the game's best QBs collide. Both explosive offenses. Both lost in the conference championship game last year. To win the Super Bowl, I have to go with the team that will find more success on the ground and get more pressure on the opposing quarterback. Even if it becomes a shootout, you have to push the pocket and sustain drives. Aaron Rodgers is more polished than Andrew Luck right now. He takes better care of the ball and is my Super Bowl 50 most valuable player, leading the Packers to the championship.